Fostering innovation in a team doesn't happen by chance. Today, my guest is Marco Picchio, and he and I discuss what it takes to create an innovative mindset and a culture of continuous improvement in your organization. Marco is a business transformation leader with global experience and expertise. I'm excited to have him on the program. Let's jump into our conversation.
I think sometimes to try and to be less cautious in some attempts is leading teams to experiment, to be more creative, and this is linked also to the concept of lessons learned, which is often overlooked. So we try to avoid failure, right? We want to do it right, and when sometimes things don't go right, we try to hide it. We try not to, in a way, let me say, celebrate it. Okay.
Yeah.
While this can indeed accelerate and improve the learning curve and the execution of future projects, for example. And this happens because sometimes, we don't want, or we might choose not to be so compliant, to stick to the rules. I'm not saying that you should be anarchic here. Don't take me wrong. I'm saying that sometimes we should have a bit more courage to try and to experiment.
I agree. The fear of failure is a prohibitor, right, to advancement. I think, if you think about if science, the whole concept of science is you experiment sometimes those experiments fail. They probably have more failures than successes, but it's those failures that drive them forward to try something different. And I think that's exactly to your point, is within continuous improvement, you don't need to get it right the first time. You can learn a lot if you don't. Now, obviously there's risks you need to assess and so on, but those are important components. I totally understand and appreciate that perspective. Let me ask you this question, right? Because there's individuals, there's teams. How do you create that problem-solving mentality in teams versus individuals within a team, right? You or I, we have this problem-solving way we think, but not everybody on the team does. How do you foster that?
Well, here I think this question about problem solving is very tied to the concept of again using tools versus solving problems, right? I think the difference here is not very much in the tools teams use to solve problems, because too often we are really linked to training programs, to the methodologies as a dogma, as we mentioned before. But it's really about those teams, those people, those leaders think about the problems. You mentioned before the how you formulate the problems. This is already a great starting point. And let me add, how do you challenge the problem statement, or how do you ask questions to better understand the problem statement? Because if you make the problem statement, or how do you ask questions to better understand the problem statement? Because if you make the problem your problem, not just something very aseptic to be tackled, you make it yours, and you make it yours by embedding into your day by day. You have the desire to solve it, and you're enough to ask enough questions to want to know more, to want to understand more. This is really the first step. If you take a problem statement, if you start from the problem and you just accept it, okay, and you jump on using the tool that you have been taught to use, this is probably not very effective. It's like when you just use tools, you're following scripts. When you think like a problem solver is when you're writing your own story. So you're being a bit, allow me to say, a bit creative as well. The way first of all, we said you have to be curious, but then you have also to be creative in the way you approach the problem solving process, the problem solving journey, I would rather say. Let me tell you a funny story here. Very early in my career, I just entered in this team. I was the continuous improvement guy, and I was faced with this situation. I was told, okay, the leadership, they want to see 8Ds. So that was the standard, the methodology that was used at the time to present how the problem was tackled, was then solved. So we are used to run 1 to 8Ds per day, and I was like, how can you run in such a small team 1 to 8Ds per day? It's not possible. It doesn't have any sense. Yeah, they want to see 8Ds, so I've learned how to produce 8Ds in a way that they're happy to see them. They don't bother us too much. And so I can go back to what I'm doing, to my work. And this person was using, it was an operational leader. He was using this sentence. He was very conscious of that. He was very conscious it was not the right way to do it, but he was used to do it. And he used this expression, we are producing 8Ds like pizzas. So imagine you are in a restaurant, you have you're in a very busy restaurant, you have to have your kitchen produce one pizza every 2 minutes because you have to feed the whole restaurant. So you have to have your process, and you really know that you have to do this, and that, and go. And I found this very funny. This was what was sticking in my mind. I found it very funny now, not at the time, because at the time, what I tried to explain, and this was my first reaction was, no, I'm not doing that. So if I'm writing that I'm analyzing something, that I'm finding the root cause, and then most importantly, that I am suggesting on that we are agreeing on improvement actions, they have to be real. They don't have to be something just something we put on paper to please someone, just because it's again written in the books, and someone believes that if we have that, we've done our job, and everything will magically, all the problems will magically disappear. In fact, they didn't disappear by doing that. So it's better to slow down in this case. So this is the case where you have to slow down, and you have to really go to the root. To, let me say, this was an example to explain that cultural transformation is a cultural shift is needed sometimes. And the point that you mentioned to me can all be summarized in the need to have a real cultural shift and a cultural transformation. So true problem solvers, to summarize, don't just solve problems, or worst, they don't show that problems are solved, but they question the system that is creating problems. So they go to the root cause, they challenge continuously the process behind, and they're curious, they ask questions. This is the right way to be problem solvers. This is my advice overall.
Oh, that's great. No, it's really solid advice, right? I often start with 3 mantras. I start with focus on the customer, frontline knows best, creativity over capital. Those are the kind of the 3 approaches I take when I'm working with teams. And I think that when I listen to what you just said, the story you just told, that's what I hear, right? That we focus on what the customer needs. You talked about the pizza restaurant, the restaurant example, right? We need to feed all these people. That's the customer you're focused on, right? The frontline knows best is often where, to your point, that people will tell you what's working, what isn't working. This is how we've done it in the past. This is what we tried in the past that maybe didn't work, and so on. So you can use that information in really constructive ways to guide the conversation. And then that last piece of creativity over capital. Creativity can be done in a number of ways. One, creativity on how you're solving the problem. If you're getting value out of this video, make sure you hit the like button, make sure you hit subscribe, and please leave me your comment, because I'm always anxious to hear from them, and I will answer every comment.